Alright everyone out there in mandolin land, Mike Heading here. I've got a little mandolin mini lesson for you today. We're going to be talking about creating more advanced chords out of our basic A bar chord shape. So we're going to look at making major 7, dominant 7, A6, A minor 7, a bunch of more advanced chords that you might find in different styles of music. You're not going to use these a ton in bluegrass, but in jazz or pop, you'll see these chords quite a bit. And it's also a little bit of a music theory lesson to see how we build these more advanced chords, and it's all based out of our basic A major shape. That's our building block that we're going to modify to create these more advanced chords. Alright, here's more advanced chords for the mandolin. Alright, let's start breaking down this lesson on how to create these altered, more advanced mandolin chords. And first, let's just review our basic bar chord shape, because all the modifications are going to be off this basic shape. So rather than having to remember 6 different chords, if you can just remember this basic shape, and then we can look at how to modify that to create all the other versions. It'll be a lot less to remember. Everything will just be out of this one basic shape. So we've got our first finger, our index finger, our left hand covering the bottom 2 frets. So frets, 2nd fret on the lowest string and 2nd fret on the D string. 2nd fret on the G string and 2nd fret on the D string. I'll also drop my thumb down a little bit. That helps me squeeze that together. I'm going to put my 3rd finger up on the 4th fret of the A string and my pinky way up on the 5th fret of the high E string. So that's my basic A major bar chord. And remember, that's movable, so you can move that around wherever you want. And all these modifications can, you can do it with any chord once you get it down. So that's our basic A major chord. And remember, our A major chord is built out of 3 notes of the scale. So we're going to get just a little bit into music theory here. So we've got our A major scale. So 3 of those notes. A lot of times you give the scales a number, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then back to 1. So the 3 notes that make up the major chord are the 1, the 3, so if I count it up 1, 2, 3, and the 5, 4, 5. So you don't necessarily have to memorize the notes A, C sharp, and E, although that would be helpful, but basically kind of remember that your chords are built off of different notes in the scale. So once we figure out the building blocks to these chords, we can add other notes in the scale to basically create these more advanced chords. Sometimes the other notes in the scale are called color tones. So you might have heard that in jazz or bluegrass, so that's just basically adding other notes on the scale to this foundational chord that we've got. So remember, 1, 3, and 5, those are my notes in my scale. That's where we're actually finding those notes to make this chord. So kind of make the connection between the scale notes and the notes of the chord. They're the same thing. So 1, 3, and 5. We got A. In this case, our next note is E. So that's the 5. Then we've got the C sharp. That's the 3. And then we've got the root, the 1 again. So we got 1, 5, 3, root. Okay? So that's just some basic music theory there. Remember, chords are built off of notes in the scale. Okay? So our first modification is to make the major chord minor. You might have already done this one. But basically, if I take my 3rd finger off and I put my 2nd finger down on that same string, now I've got A minor. So I've got A major, I've got A minor. So that's called flatting the 3rd. So the 3rd note of the scale, again, is called a color tone because I can change that note and it makes it from major to minor, okay? So let's go back now, A major. Another one we can do is we can change this high note. So if we want to do A major 7 for an example, we would take this note, that's our root note, and now we need to add a color tone. So we're going to add the 7th note of the scale, the major 7th note. So 1 note below the root. So we're going to add that by barring our 3rd finger. Hear that? So we got A major, and then we've got A major 7. So I'm not changing the 3rd note, I'm just changing that note on the top. And that one might take a little practice. You can see I'm kind of really squeezing it down, so I don't expect you to get this one right away. If we want to continue that down, we could do A dominant 7, so A flat 7, sometimes just called A7. So that in that case, we're going to take our third finger and just put back on the A string, put our second finger up on the third fret of the highest string. Okay, that's A flatted 7. So again, we took our root note, we flatted the 7th note down. So flatting it means moving it a half step down. That'd be A7. Lastly, if we took off our second finger and just barred this one totally with our first finger, we'd have A6. You might see that in Western swing or jazz music, so that's a good one to know. So just by modifying that top string, we've got 4 different chords. We've got A major 7, A7, and A6. Remember, it's all built off this major shape. Okay, let's do the same thing, except now let's make them all minor. So if we took our pinky off and put our third finger down, that'd be A minor major 7. You probably won't use that one very often, but you could. If we flat our second finger, we've got A minor 7. That one's kind of common. You might see that in like Beatles music or rock or pop music, A minor 7. And then lastly, you could do A minor 6, which you probably won't see too often either, but again, I'm just adding those color notes on top. I'm just taking my basic either A major or A minor and then adding those color notes on top. That's why it's so important to know the basic shape. Everything is just a modification out of that basic shape. It's a lot less to remember. So you can move those around wherever. If you want a B minor 7, you can move it up. B major, minor. Now you can do any chord anywhere on the neck. You can do the major 7, flatted 7, 6 chords, minor 7, all just out of this basic shape. Okay? So practice that. Again, part of half the battle is just getting the strength to be able to play them all. Lastly, what you can do is do the string test. Just play them all one at a time. And just practice getting them all down. And it's going to take some practice, so remember, just get the shapes down. Don't worry about getting the sound of the chords perfect right away. You can always get that later. That is going to come with time. You're always going to be working on getting your chords to sound cleaner. Just start by getting the shapes, and remember, take advantage of using your thumb. If you don't drop your thumb down, I don't know, for me it's almost impossible to get those chords to sound good. You basically have to go into this death grip where everything really tightens up. So really drop your thumb down there. Get your wrist out enough that you can get all those notes to ring out cleanly. Okay? You can practice different strumming with that. Those also sound great too. So remember, you don't have to be afraid if you see a minor 7th chord or a dominant 7th chord or a A6th. You'll be ready. Remember, it's just that modification out of that basic shape. All right? Hopefully that helps you out. All right, good luck.